You're listening to The Weather Junkies.
Oh boy.
Large wedge tornado coming up into Tuscaloosa.
A winter storm warning is in effect for our area.
With snow, we can expect at least another 2 to 4 inches overnight. Then that snow is
The National Weather Service in Huntsville has issued a tornado warning for northwestern Madison.
14 to 22 inches of snow!
Welcome to another episode of The Weather Junkies. I'm Dakota Smith, and here with us is Tyler Jankowski. And today we have a special guest, and Paul Svenson. But,
Yes,
first
Tyler.
Tyler.
The special guest.
How you doing, Paul?
Hey, great to be here, guys.
Welcome to the show.
So, since this is our second episode, we'll do quick intros with me and Tyler. Again, I'm a grad student out here studying the carbon cycle at Colorado State University, and that's in Fort Collins, Colorado.
And of course, I graduated alongside Dakota and our special guest this evening, but right now I am actually working and not currently going to school. I am a weather communicator. I work for a television station here in Connecticut, in my home state, so a very good place to be, somewhere I've wanted to work for quite some time, and that's what I do on a daily basis. And again, in Connecticut on the East Coast, Dakota, you are on the West Coast.
Well, mountain time. Let's be careful there.
Yes. For us Easterners, that's what it's like.
Yeah, that's true. It's just all one chunk of West. And so today we have Paul Svenson, who's a data scientist at Cablevision. And Paul is from Long Island, and right now he's living in Hoboken, New Jersey. Paul, welcome to the show. How are things out there in New York?
Hey, Dakota. Things are great out here in New York. So this is my first time on the show, so I'd like to give maybe a little longer of a intro than you guys just gave.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a native New Yorker, like Dakota said, but actually I'm living in New Jersey right now. So I met Dakota and Tyler at Penn State, where I joined them in studying meteorology. So while there, I focused on weather risk management, which actually I think was a great program, and really got me thinking about how to apply meteorology to non-traditional domains. So during school, actually, I worked as an intern with NOAA in the Earth System Research Lab. There I worked in a team that aimed to improve wind forecasts for the wind energy industry, which I think was both a fun and impactful experience. After school, though, we kind of all seemed to go our separate ways, whereas Tyler is now, I guess, a communicator of the weather, and Dakota is pursuing academia in the atmospheric sciences. I've seemed to take a different career path.
Paul, that's a great point you brought up. We all went different ways, even though we were studying the same kind of stuff and in the same community and group. That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So actually right now what I'm doing, Dakota, is finishing up my Master of Science degree in Business Analytics. So what this means is, in layman's terms, I'm studying how to leverage mathematics, statistics, computer science, basically to help organizations manage and gain insights from their data. So my ultimate goal with this is, and we'll see if I ever get there, but my ultimate goal is to merge all of my experience and help organizations gain insights from weather data.
Gotcha. Well, we will get into that in much more detail in our main segment a little bit later. So, Paul, if you hang on with us, we'll talk about that in much more detail.
All right, great. See you guys later.
Very excited to have Paul aboard for this show, but we'll talk to him a little later. We have a new segment coming up, right, Dakota?
Yeah, I believe that's what we're going to get to. Did you want to talk about the weather in your backyard for a moment?
For a little bit. I'll start off here. It's a dreary stretch of weather. This is day 2 with clouds and rain and really seasonable temperatures. But we've been so what's the word I want? 70s for days. We've been spoiled The word escaped me. We've had so many days that were really nice, weeks on end, just nothing going on, and now we're actually in the 50s, well, exactly how it should be in November, and it looks like we have the same type of day on tap for tomorrow. So a little bit of a wake-up call for us, but I looked at some long-range indications for next week today, and another 70-degree day is possible. So it's just a very interesting situation where we don't have any impressive cold in the forecast, and we still have these major warm-ups even as we get into deeper into November. So who knows what that'll mean for this upcoming winter.
Yeah, that's you sad people in the 50s. That must be tough.
You had snow, right?
Yeah, we had 2 inches of snow over here. It was a nice little cyclone that moved through. Brought, like I said, 2 to 5 inches broadly from Fort Collins to Denver. And when I woke up, though, or not when I woke up, when I finally went outside, it was about 9:30 in the morning. There were more leaves on my car than there was snow. So that shows you how quick it was. The sun was shining, the snow had all melted basically, and all it was leaves. So it was a very quick hitter. It did bring down the temperatures quite a bit. We're probably going to get in the upper 20s tonight, and that's probably going to continue. I think we're in this pattern now where we get down below freezing every night, probably get into the 50s during the day. But this is the same storm that moved through here that's moving through the Midwest right now, bringing some severe weather. I don't know if you've looked into it, but as of right now, it's 7:30 Eastern Time. There are 7 tornado reports from the Storm Prediction Center, 70 wind reports, and 3 hail reports. So they have quite an active day out there in Iowa, northern Missouri, and western Illinois.
Yeah, I've definitely been paying attention, doing a lot of radar analysis. It's been so quiet here in Connecticut, not one tornado warning this year.
Wow.
So it's good to stay fresh on radar techniques and radar meteorology. So certainly did some storm dissecting today, and I saw at least one instance of a radar-confirmed tornado with a tornado debris signature. It was near I-80 in Avoca, Iowa. I remember Avoca because there's an Avoca, Pennsylvania in the Wyoming Valley. But yeah, right along I-80, it blew a truck over. I saw a tweet of a picture with the truck blown over, and it's really cool to see a tornado debris signature. Obviously, it's destructive and negative in that regard, but from a meteorological standpoint, there's a lot of power in seeing a debris signature because you can confirm a tornado without even looking out a window. And that's so important, and a lot of people are still learning how to use and recognize tornado debris signatures, but it's so important, and you can never get enough practice looking at them.
Yeah, it's amazing how far we've come in radar technology. It's probably a different topic for a different show, but
it is, yes.
I mean, we've come so far just in the past 4 years, really. We've come
all with basically the same hardware with some upgrades. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. So yeah. Hopefully the severe weather out there isn't too bad. Hopefully not a lot of destruction and any lives lost.
We're in the middle of the second severe season, and it's certainly produced here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Looks like it could be a fairly active pattern, a few waves moving through for the next few weeks. But let's get into our next segment. And Tyler, as you know, the weather Twitterverse is a pretty crazy and weird and awesome place all in one.
It is. I don't want to call it a weather playhouse because that's Fred's term for Weather World, but it is a great place for meteorologists to really exchange information. It's somewhat unfortunate that a lot of people don't understand how to use it. A lot of people don't use Twitter, I think, because it's hard for them to understand. Twitter changed their favorite to a like button, similar to Facebook, a la Facebook. but yes, it's a great place for us to study the weather and exchange information. And so our hope with this new segment is to recognize that and talk about some of the cool stuff we've seen in the last week, right?
Yeah. So let's get into it. Let's check out what's trending in the weather Twitterverse. So our first tweet here is from Alex Lammers, who is a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Tallahassee. You can follow him at Alex J. Lammers. This tweet says, you can see Patricia impact on vegetation in Mexico in this comparison from Chris Fogarty. Basically, the image he shows, you have a visible satellite, two visible satellite images before and after Patricia. And along with that, you have an NDVI, two images before and after. And basically, the NDVI measures kind of how many leaves are in one particular area. And before, it's kind of this nice forest green, fairly uniform, not completely uniform, but fairly uniform. And then after, you can see it's a lighter green, and there's a clear swath of this lighter green where Patricia made landfall, and that's indicating that Patricia made some trees fall down and de-leaved a lot of trees that may have stayed standing. Tyler, what do you think of this?
I have a couple of thoughts, and one thought that just came to mind is in general about this segment. It'd be very easy to put the links to these tweets in the video description, right?
Absolutely. We'll put them in the description, and we'll also retweet them from our Twitter account if you want to check them out there.
We will. So my thoughts on this image are, one is, a lot of people hear satellite and they think, well, yeah, you look at clouds, but nowadays you can see a whole bunch of different things with a satellite, and one is the forestry product here that we're looking at, and it in some ways it looks like a tornado devastation path. Obviously, that's not what it is, but the idea is that even a hurricane can take leaves and knock trees down for a good ways inland, and the graphic goes out of its way to highlight even in the higher terrain some leaves and perhaps some trees came down. Obviously, Patricia had remarkable wind, especially offshore before it weakened.
Yeah. And that was downplayed after the fact. It's because they didn't have the crazy images of houses knocked down, and so it didn't get as much coverage after it made landfall that normally major hurricanes that make landfall do. But it clearly was powerful.
Yeah, it was, and honestly, it was surprising that the death toll was as low as it was. That was a pleasant surprise.
Oh yeah, for sure. Tyler, what do you see? What did you see this week in the Twitter sphere?
Well, we have a cool stat from Denver, and this was tweeted by a meteorologist, and his bio says that he forecasts for the Denver metro area and also Colorado. Previously worked at the Climate Prediction Center. He tweeted, again from Josh Larson, not a typo, but today, which was November 6th, was the first time Denver saw a below average high and low temperature on the same day since August, 75 days ago. So that means each day before November 6th, there was some kind of above average warmth going on, whether it was the morning low or typically the afternoon high temperature. So remarkable longevity in the above average stretch there. 75 days roughly.
Yeah, I think it really sends the message home at how warm it was here compared to normal. I mean, this was the first accumulating snowfall in Fort Collins, which is a little late. It's like a week, maybe a week and a half late than normal. And Denver saw its first snowfall last week, which was also late for them down there. So overall, it was just a very mild beginning, or I guess late fall, beginning of winter almost. So that it's definitely something I enjoyed. I can't complain about it.
And you, I believe, also saw a tweet about meteorologists, right?
That's right. Yeah. So this next one comes from Jenna Maroney Marbles. You can follow her at Jenna_Marbles. She is a famous YouTuber, one of the famous YouTubers actually. And she tweeted this during that there's a fireball. It was off the coast of California. I actually forget which city it was. But she tweeted at a meteorologist, Laura Thomas. She said, "The torrid meteors would be coming from the east. This came from the west." She was referring to the fireball. The fireball came from the west. And then she ends the tweet with, "You have one job." So basically what she's saying here is that the meteorologist said the fireball, which we now know that was a naval missile test. The meteorologist was saying that the fireball that they saw was a meteor shower. And I guess the point that I really thought was a little entertaining from this is that I think Jenna Marbles thinks that meteorologists study meteors. Because with the last thing, you have one job, saying you have one job is studying meteors and you did it wrong. So Tyler, you probably have interface with people that think you do something else because you're on TV. What's your take on this?
Well, when I initially read the tweet, I thought the "you have one job" part was referring to forecast the weather, get that right, and don't talk about anything else.
Right.
Obviously, you took it a totally different way, which is exactly why you should listen to other people and the opinions they have, because they could be totally different.
Yeah.
And in regards to what I thought, my response to Jenna would be, the whole station scientist thing. Even though we are focusing on weather, we're forced to look at other things because we're really the only one in the TV station environment that remotely knows something about another thing that's science related. So, and obviously astronomy is a popular secondary topic behind meteorology, so it often comes up. It's just too bad that the fact was wrong, was inaccurate, and it actually was a missile test.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And my one final point is that I think it's kind of funny, that laymen or people that don't know anything about atmospheric sciences think that meteorologists, some people, I'm being very general here, some people think that meteorologists actually study meteors, which is obviously a misnomer. And we don't help that misnomer at all, because I don't know if you were on Twitter, but almost every weather person was tweeting about the fireball or missile test, and we kind of perpetuate this wrong idea. So I just think that's kind of entertaining because, we perpetuate it, and not necessarily a bad thing, because it is science and it is interesting. So
yeah,
as long as we get it right?
Yeah, and you know what else happened this week in Yemen?
Oh my gosh, I love this. Go ahead, yeah.
Was the record-breaking. Obviously, records don't go back forever, but the first cyclone, Chapala. Some disagreement on how to pronounce it, but it starts with a C, and it's a cyclone. It made landfall in mainland Yemen, and according to this story by Dennis Mercero on the Vane Gawker, says it was the first such landfall on record. So impressive, that alone. But then shortly afterwards, there was another cyclone called Meg that made landfall on an island in the vicinity of Yemen, and it was the equivalent of a Category 3 hurricane. So a lot of tropical activity there near Yemen, and that's not normal.
No, it's not at all. The sentence that he has, which I think is a crazy and brilliant sentence, is Yemen saw more hurricane-strength storms last week than Florida has seen in the past 10 years. Wilma, I believe, was the last hurricane-strength hurricane that Florida saw, and that was in 2005, I believe. It's not a very that area right there, Yemen. There's a lot of dry air in the atmosphere, which kind of thwarts the propagation and intensity of hurricanes or cyclones, rather. Sorry, that move into that area.
And bringing it back home, our final tweet of this week's Trending in the Weather Twitterverse segment is a tweet by Joe Bastardi about climate science and Donald Trump.
Wait, we're bringing up Donald Trump on the show?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think I'm on Twitter too much, if I'm being honest, because I saw this whole conversation. Yeah, a lot of us are guilty of that. I don't know if you don't know, Joe Bastardi is he's a long range forecaster. I watched him. Yeah, he essentially, yeah, you're right. And I watched him a lot on AccuWeather when he used to work for them. He works for Weatherbell right now, and he went on this kind of this tweets. I was calling it a tweet storm. He was kind of tweeting a lot, and he does this sometimes about topics that he's passionate about. And he was talking about this Capital Weather Gang article that discussed Trump's comments on weather and climate. Did you? I don't know if you saw the article. It was all about basically the history of tornadoes and.
I did read it. I read it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Essentially, they were disproving Trump because when Trump was talking about climate science, and that's just a meatball hanging in the air there. That's low-hanging fruit. So here, I'll go through it as quickly as I can. From the Capital Weather Gang article, this is what Trump said. You look back, and they were calling it global cooling and global warming and global everything. But if you look back, and the biggest, and this is hard to read, and the biggest tornadoes were in the 1890s. The biggest hurricanes were in the 1860s and 1870s. And then he made one, and then the Capital Weather Gang responded to that, saying any student of climatology knows we don't have reliable historical records of tornadoes and hurricanes from the 1800s. Trump's either misremembering facts or making stuff up. And then now this is where Joe Bastardi comes in. He's commenting on this, and he tweeted the Washington Post hit piece on Trump, August 24 statement below factually wrong. We have major landfalls since 1850s. He's referring to the records. He's saying we have major landfall records of hurricanes since the 1850s, and that's absolutely true. That tweet is not wrong or false at all. It's kind of hard to believe, right? We have hurricane data that far in the past. And then finally, he says the statement below in tornadoes is wrong. While it's not as good, while the records are not as good as today, we have records in 1800s. So my kind of, I have a little bit of a beef with this, and I think the key wording in the Capital Weather Gang is they say we don't have reliable historical records of tornadoes and hurricanes, and it depends on how you interpret that word reliable, but I think what they mean is that we don't have everything, every tornado, every hurricane that happened in the 1800s, because now with radar technology and satellites, we pretty much can tell when there's and not even pretty much. We know when there's a tornado going on, and we know when there's some sort of tropical system going on. But we didn't have that in the 1800s, and I think he's kind of splitting hairs here, defending Trump. What do you think about this?
I think he brings up a great point, and maybe splitting hairs is the right way to phrase it. The line that says Trump's either misremembering facts or making stuff up, certainly the whole article was taking down what Trump said, when
Right.
in reality there's something there. You know, for somehow he knows that hurricanes and tornadoes occurred in the 1800s. Obviously, the strength is in question because we didn't have the same observing system that we have now. But the bottom line is, for Trump, the fact that we had a strong hurricane or a strong tornado in the 1800s does not mean that global warming is not occurring, which is what he was probably getting at.
Yeah.
So that's not work. That's not going to work. It's not accurate.
Right.
What Joe is saying is that we clearly have landfall information because there were people living on the coast and they knew when a storm hit in the 1800s, and there were certainly strong storms that hit in the 1800s, and they made landfall. There was a busy decade. He references the 1890s, for example, where there were 7 major hurricanes that made landfall between Louisiana and North Carolina. One also hit in 1900 in Texas. So, perhaps the Capital Weather Gang article could have been a little bit more even-keeled and made reference to that we actually do know some of this stuff happened in the 1800s, and perhaps that's what he was referring to.
Right. Yeah. No. I think you have a fair point there, because we have the records of tornadoes and hurricanes from when they hit populated areas.
Yeah, certainly we don't know about what happened over the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to end it on this note. He's defending a guy who thinks a snowstorm in March disproves global warming.
Yeah, you could just laugh at that.
Yeah, I'll just laugh at that. All right. Tyler, do you have anything else? That's all I have.
No, I think it's time for the main show.
Okay, let's see if Paul is still with us here.
Yes. Hey guys, I am still here.
That's a good sign.
I'm glad you didn't fall asleep there. So today we're going to talk about how you find your place in the weather community. It happens differently for everyone, different places, different people, different times of their lives. And we have a group with us. The 3 of us are now in different areas of the weather enterprise. Or rather, we're in different places in the weather community. So who wants to give it a shot? I guess Paul. I have this burning question for you.
Yes.
Because you're a data analyst now for a cable company. And I knew you in as an undergrad as a kind of a weather weenie, someone who really loved the weather, right? Is that right to say?
Yeah, that's correct. That's fair.
Okay. So I want to know, where did you see yourself working when you were a freshman entering undergrad at Penn State?
So that's a great question. I have to say I did think I was going to be a weather forecaster coming into Penn State. That's definitely what I wanted to do. That's why I was there studying meteorology. But things certainly change.
Do you remember the first moment where you kind of were like, I think I like this stat thing?
Yeah, actually I think it was Dr. Neese, John Neese, who so he was talking about this thing called weather risk management. I think it was in Meteo 201. It was our first weather class that we took.
So you found out pretty early on.
Pretty early, yeah. So he was talking about this concentration within the meteorology program at Penn State, and it was weather risk management. I don't know. I took a liking to that. And then he also taught us a statistics class, and I took a liking to that as well. So.
Oh yes, EBF. What is it? 457?
472, I believe.
472. Yeah.
So the young, innocent Paul ventured across a chilly Penn State campus to an introductory meteorology class, and had his eyes open to the other possibilities. That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, that sounds about right, Tyler.
And of course, we shared some classes together freshman year, and notably, freshman seminar was a class on climate change. And I thought that was a great question, Dakota. Where did you see yourself going on day one?
Tyler, can I ask you that question?
That's what I was going to answer. So
Okay.
yeah, you can ask it. I saw myself working in TV, which is exactly where I am, but I didn't go to Penn State thinking, well, I'm not going to take calculus 3 or 4. I mean, you can't get by without doing that because that's required, but my goal was to definitely to get the full experience, the whole meteorology degree, and then do what I wanted to do with it, which is TV, but certainly realize that the doors are open no matter how late it is to do other things. I could be doing something totally different in 10 years, and I'm totally okay with that. So that's part of the reason why I chose Penn State, and so far it's worked out.
On that note, I chose Penn State because I don't know, 75% of the meteorologists I met when I was in high school went to Penn State, and we didn't have a in-state program for meteorology in Maryland. So I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to this place where all these people have degrees from. I came in it with no idea though of what I wanted to do, not a clue. Like I just like looking at clouds, and I was like, all right, well, I'll study it, I guess. So it sounds like it's a little different because Paul. What's that?
I said looking at clouds from good old polycalls.
Yeah, we had a roof access over in Pollock, and that was nice. So I'm gonna switch back to Paul here, because you are our special guest. So now you're at a job where you don't have much interaction with the weather. What do you do to compensate for that? Because I know there's a gaping hole there that you love the weather still, and you wanna have some sort of part in it. Do you do anything?
Yeah, you know what? Your intuition is definitely correct. I do have this kind of void where I'm really missing the weather, and I'm a weather weenie at heart. I am. So it's I haven't been doing much, and I feel that hole. So I'm gonna toot your horn here, and maybe this show is something that can get me back in.
Here we go. We're pulling you back.
You're not even that involved on Twitter.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
Yeah, @Svenstorm has seen some decreased activity.
Six tweets in 3 years.
3 years? It's been that long?
I don't know.
It might be.
Well, okay. Well, yeah. So that's funny that you say this show. This is the reason that I saw a gaping hole in my weather weeniness, because I look at, similar to you actually. I look at a computer all day and type code, and I don't have much to do with the weather. So I kind of take that out on Twitter and this show, to be honest.
Exactly. So yeah. So in the future, I'll certainly be tuning in to each and every episode of this show.
Wow, we got a listener.
Yes,
we got a listener.
So Paul, your job with Cablevision, I find it intriguing that a meteorology graduate works for a cable company. I actually have a friend who is the evening meteorologist, Garrett Argianis, at News 12 Connecticut. Obviously, Cablevision runs a group of little TV stations. I shouldn't say little, but very localized TV stations.
Sure, I believe they call it hyper-local.
Yeah. Do you have any role in that?
No, I do not actually.
Perhaps give us some insight into what you actually do on a daily basis.
Certainly. So I'm actually not doing anything weather-related, believe it or not. So what my current role is involves building mathematical models to actually help Cablevision better understand customers, understand what customers are watching on TV. And so
Anything to do with ratings?
Very much to do with ratings, yes. Yeah, so it has a broad implication within the company, but mostly what my work is doing is helping advertising sales folks sell commercial ad space.
Okay, so that I kind of thought maybe if you did that, what am I saying? I'm saying I thought maybe that was a possibility, and now I fully understand. So like viewer habits, or maybe
Exactly. Yeah.
It sounds like you're trying to hack into our brains and give us what we want.
People are okay with you watching them when they're on the internet, but when you tell them that you're watching them, watch cable TV, for some reason they really take that to heart.
That's interesting. Well, I think part of it is that people don't have a clue that they're being watched on the internet.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I could care less if people know what I'm doing on the internet or on the television, because if they're suiting it to your what you like, right? So if they're trying to make the experience better for you, then I don't see why not. So
Dakota and I were talking about this earlier, preparing for our big interview with you. What was I going to say? Okay. So you obviously have a Bachelor of Science degree in meteorology, and you're working on a Master of Science degree. In the job that you're in with Cablevision, which degree have you found most useful, or perhaps what degree qualified you for the job?
So I think actually both degrees equally qualified me for the job, but I think it's more interesting to talk about how the meteorology degree sort of allowed me to get this kind of job. It seems like it's so different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so it's funny, when I mentioned to folks around the office that I have a meteorology degree, I usually get, "Wow, that's a really interesting degree. Did you probably want to be on TV?" Or Tyler, you can say to that, "Yes, I am on TV."
Oh, it happens all the time.
But then I respond with, I never really wanted to be on TV. But anyway, it's not really a career change. I don't see it as a career change. I'm still really using the tools and skills that I learned from meteorology. I'm just kind of applying them differently.
I love that sentence right there. It's not a career change. That is so cool. That what you learned in a meteorology degree is you learn the same things that you're applying to your job at a cable company. That's crazy to me. That's awesome.
So now, so I'm going to be honest here, and a lot of the things I'm actually learning in graduate school in a completely different program, I'm relearning the same things from the meteorology degree, which is kind of amazing.
I think that goes to show you how beneficial a meteorology degree can be. It's not just the weather; it's so much more. And that kind of brings me to something. I sent out a Twitter poll, and I said, for meteo or atmospheric graduates, is your current field of work related to weather? And the response was 89% yes, 11% no. And there was, I think, about 10 votes, or 9 votes, sorry. So, there's a population of people out there that have degrees in meteorology or atmospheric sciences that go in a completely different path. And that's just how diverse the degree is.
Sure, yeah, it's definitely a testament to, not only Penn State program, but meteorology programs across the country.
Yeah, I think probably the key part of it is it's got to be the programming and problem-solving aspect of it.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you could give advice to someone who wants to be a businessman like yourself,
Paul the TV guy.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call myself necessarily a businessman. I'm not out there closing big deals or anything.
Not yet.
Yeah, but I can see things. Well, if you were to give someone who wanted to go into private sector, and and they're in a meteorology program right now, and they're kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I love the weather, but I'm good at this programming thing, and I want to, well, frankly, I want to make money. What kind of advice could you give them?
So I would say definitely don't limit yourself. Know the power of the degree that you have and the skills that you gained by studying meteorology. To be frank, companies are yearning for people with the skills that we developed through studying meteorology. So know how to leverage that, and don't limit yourself.
Powerful words. Tyler, you have any comments?
I think Paul pulled the words from my mouth about the versatility of a meteorology degree and how well it prepares you to do a whole bunch of things that don't always apply to weather. I really like the problem-solving aspect, and certainly the coding is important. And the thing that I found helpful from Penn State, not the meteorology program, but from Penn State, was how to survive in a rigorous environment, especially some of the, certainly some meteorology classes are really hard, but then you have the general education classes where you're pooled in with the engineers and the rocket scientists and
right.
chemists, and somehow you have to find a way to beat the curve but pass the class and all things like that. And I remember working with groups of large people, and if you didn't do that, you wouldn't survive. So you had to learn your way around, a small fish in a big sea.
So that you brought up an interesting point about taking these hard classes and learning how to problem solve. How many people do you think that we went to school with, just a percentage or a proportion? We have to derive these crazy equations, right? They put us through hell in a way. How many people do you think have to derive the vorticity equation, or have to derive the Amengo equation, or use that in their field of work? It's definitely a rhetorical question, but I would say not, maybe like one or two, right?
Yeah, not many, and really not a whole lot in meteorology unless you're researching or trying to design the next best model.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. It's someone who's developing a weather model or improving a weather model. So it's really the process of deriving that equation that I think where we learn the most. Even as much as terrible as it was good for us in the end. It built character.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So, Paul, you have anything else as a current weather weenie in the business world?
So I'm looking forward to the winter.
There it is. There's the weather weenie.
Winter weather weenie.
Yeah.
I certainly I think you, Paul, are in a unique situation. So another question I would have, and hopefully some listeners have, is what are some pluses and some minuses to continuing on your education in a different area other than meteorology?
Okay, so
bachelor's degree.
Yeah, so one negative right off the bat is the price.
Mm-hmm.
So if you choose to continue your education in the atmospheric sciences, it's likely that you'll get some kind of funding, and I know Dakota vouch for that one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, you get funding.
Okay.
I have food to eat every night.
So I've chosen a private school, a technology school that's very expensive and doesn't provide that much funding. So that's definitely a
negative.
A positive is you get a different perspective on things. I think experience is all about getting different perspectives, and the more perspectives you have, the more you can do, right?
Wow, yeah. You're hitting some notes here.
What type of,
This
for
is some-
example, what type of people do you go to school with, or work with? Like, what are their backgrounds?
So a lot of them are engineers. Some of them went to school for business. A lot of engineers, a lot of IT folks, programmers, kind of technology backgrounds.
I didn't hear any meteorologists.
And I'm definitely the only one.
Well, it's inspiring to have you on the show.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it really is. I hope people in school right now who want to go on a similar path can take some of what you said and use it to their advantage.
Yeah, I hope so. And one day I'm hoping to find myself back in the weather game. Maybe working for IBM with all the recent press.
Oh, I see you listened to our last show.
Oh, I did, definitely. I'd love to hear your guys' perspective on that.
Yeah, I wish we had you on because I heard you actually had to write a paper on it.
Yes, actually, yes. Earlier this week I wrote a paper on that, so it's interesting.
Yeah, that's a missed opportunity. Well, Paul, thank you for joining us. We hope to have you on very soon.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Dakota.
Well, that just about does it, right, Dakota?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. We have a few last words here. So we are starting to make our presence felt on different areas of the web. We're on SoundCloud right now.
Love SoundCloud.
Yeah, SoundCloud's great. We're also on iTunes. The podcast might be uploaded to iTunes a little late, so if you don't see it in the next day, don't worry, it'll be on soon. And we're also on YouTube. And across the board, it's just Weather Junkies. You can follow us on Facebook at The Weather Junkies, The WX Junkies, and on Facebook. And next week, I hope you join us. We're going to be talking about the intersection of climate science and the government. There are some things happening right now that I think me and Tyler would love to sink our teeth into.
It's bound to be a show to look forward to next week.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Dakota.
And I'm Tyler.
Cal, I gotta go, Julia. We got Cal.